Hi there, Jeff here. If you heard our special episode, then you know we've recently started a new podcast called Essential English Expressions. Each episode in the new podcast is all about one English expression. I show you exactly how to use it, and I give lots and lots of real-world examples. The entire first season is available now. That's 14 of the most common English expressions that you need to know to speak English like a native speaker. To get you excited for the new podcast, I'm publishing a sample episode here in this feed. So listen to this special episode about an English expression. If you like it, you can stream or download all 14 episodes in Season 1 by subscribing to Essential English Expressions. The link to that is in the episode description. What does it mean to figure something out? You'll learn this extremely common phrasal verb in this episode. Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is Essential English Expressions, where you learn step by step how to use the expressions and phrasal verbs that will make your English come alive. In this episode, you'll learn how to use the phrasal verb figure out. Before we dive into the expression, I wanted to remind you that each episode of Essential English Expressions has a webpage with a transcript, translations of keywords, a quiz, and a full-speed version of this audio. There's also a practice area where you can use the expression in a sentence and get personal feedback from me. To get all that, just click the link in the show notes. Now, let's dive into today's episode. The phrasal verb figure out is one you need to know and use because it's extremely common in English. It has two meanings. Number one, to understand how to solve a problem or to find a solution. And number two, to understand something that's confusing. Now, I know it sounds like those are the same, but they're not quite the same. So don't worry. In this episode, I'll show you exactly how to use figure out. Now, here's a tip before we start. After figure out, we typically use words like who, what, when, where, or why. So listen for that in the examples. We're going to start with the first meaning. We use figure out when we're working to solve a problem or find an answer. We use figure out when we have a problem, but we don't know what the answer is. Figure out is not about fixing the problem. Figure out is not about taking the action. Figure out is about discovering the solution. First, you figure out the solution, then you take the action. I'll start with an example close to home. I used to live in a condominium in Chicago, a cold weather place, and there was a part of my apartment that was just always cold. I could not figure out why that part of the apartment was so cold. I had the heat on. I didn't understand why the heat simply didn't arrive to that part of the apartment. I had a problem and I could not solve it. I didn't know the answer. I was clueless. Was it the windows? Was it the furnace? I could not figure it out. I just didn't know. So I hired an engineer to come to my house, and I told him, I need some help figuring this out. I don't know why this area is always cold in the winter. And you know what? The engineer figured it out. It wasn't the furnace. It wasn't the windows. The engineer discovered that the insulation was poor in that part of the apartment. The engineer figured out why that part of the apartment was cold. He didn't fix the problem. He didn't fix the insulation, but he discovered the answer. He discovered the solution. He figured it out. Now imagine that a company is losing younger customers to competitors. So if this company is going to stay in business, they need to figure out how to attract younger customers. Again, here, figure out means coming up with a plan to solve the problem. After the company has a plan, it needs to do the work to attract young customers. But the first thing is to figure out what to do. The first thing is to solve the problem. One last example. Imagine your car needs service and you won't have a vehicle for 3 days while it's being repaired. You need to figure out how you're going to get to work during those 3 days. What is your answer going to be? Will you ask a coworker to drive you? Will you take an Uber? Does a bus or train go by your workplace? Can you borrow a car from a friend or family member? I don't know what the answer is going to be, but you have to figure it out. You have to solve the problem, find the solution, and then you have to do it. So in each of these situations, figure out is all about finding a solution to a specific issue. The second way to use figure out is similar, but here, figure out means to understand something that's confusing or complicated. Think about a family with 2 kids, and both kids just advanced to a new grade level, so they're at different schools for the new year. The schools start at different times. Mom and dad both have to work too. So what do the parents need to do before the school year starts? They have to figure a lot of things out. The parents need to figure out when to set the alarm clocks so that everyone is awake on time. They have to figure out when to leave the house to get everyone to school and work on time. Then they have to figure out where to drop the kids off after arriving at school. There's a lot to figure out when kids advance to a new grade level and a new school. Well, now imagine the school year is over and those parents want to plan a party for the other children in their kids' classes. They'll need to figure out who will bring the food. They'll want to figure out where to have the party. And they'll want to figure out when to have it too. These are not enormous problems, but they are somewhat complicated. They require some thought. So notice, in this case, figure out is not about finding a solution to a problem. It's about understanding a situation or understanding how you'll do something. Are you good at doing household repairs? I'm not. I know better than to try. But I want you to imagine doing something difficult around the house, whether it's installing a new ceiling fan or fixing a leaky faucet. You might see a YouTube video, or you might have a set of written instructions. But even after watching the video, and even after reading the instructions multiple times, you might say, I still can't figure out how to do this. In this case, figure out means to understand the complicated process. The instructions might have confusing pictures. They might use unfamiliar vocabulary, or the instructions just might not be correct. That happens too, right? So you're left staring at the page, holding the pieces in your hand, trying to figure out how to replace that faucet or how to install that ceiling fan. This is less common, but you can also use figure out when you're trying to understand a person's behavior or personality. People can sometimes be hard to figure out, hard to understand. For example, if a new coworker acts unpredictably, you might say, "I can't figure out why he's acting that way." Or simply, "I can't figure him out." This means you're struggling to understand his behavior or personality. You can also say, "I can't figure out what he wants." That means you listen to what he says, you observe what he does, and you still don't understand what he wants, why he behaves the way he does. You can't figure him out. Now, did you hear that? I can't figure him out. You may have noticed that we sometimes put an object in between figure and out. If you're trying to solve a problem, you can say, "Figure it out." Part of my apartment was cold in the winter. I couldn't figure it out. But an engineer did. He did figure it out. You can also say, "Figure this out," or "figure that out." If your car is scheduled to be repaired next week and you need a way to get to and from work, you can say, "I'll figure that out later." But if you're staring at the instructions to install a ceiling fan, you can say, "I can't figure this out." The examples you've heard so far have used figure out plus a word like who, what, when, where, or why. You can also use figure out with the word if. And this is when you have a yes-no type of doubt. For example, we should figure out if we can make this recipe gluten-free. This is a yes-no question. Either you can do it or you cannot do it. We should figure out if we can make the recipe gluten-free. Now, if you've been listening closely, you probably heard that I pronounce figure out like it's one word. The R sound at the end of figure leads right into the ow sound in out. Figure out. The two words blend together, so they sound like one. In fact, it sounds strange to say them as two distinct words. Figure out. Even saying it now, it's hard for me to put that space between the two words. The same thing goes for when we place an object in between. Figure it out becomes figure it out. Really fast like that. You might hear someone say, "Can you figure it out for me?" Like that. So there you go. Now you understand figure out. It can mean to find the answer to a hard problem or to understand something complicated. We often use words like who, what, when, where, why, or if after figure out. So now you're prepared to use figure out. And English expressions can be hard to figure out. If you're ever staring at the screen saying, "I can't figure this out," just relax. we can help you. For every essential English expression in this podcast, there's a page on plainenglish.com. And on that page, you can take a quiz, do an activity, and practice writing your own sentence using the expression. And best of all, you get feedback from me. So check out the link in the show notes to find the page for Figure Out, or just go to plainenglish.com and sign up. We'll show you around from there. Deal? All right, we've reached the end of this episode. Keep up the great work in English. So what did you think? If you liked the episode, there are 13 more just like it waiting for you to enjoy right now. They're all in a new podcast called Essential English Expressions. Before you forget, take a moment to subscribe to that new podcast now. Search your podcast player for Essential English Expressions or click the link in the description of this episode. You'll be glad you did.